All right. Well, welcome to this week's podcast. We're going to be discussing personal family budgeting and how important it is as a family to have that be on the same page on that. So, some stats that really stick out to me and that I found from Gilbert Law Firm. They say that 27% of couples will fight and argue about finances. And in fact, if it's not really resolved, what was really eye-opening to me is couples between the ages of 45 to 54, they say they average 4 money arguments a month. And so it's one of those things that I think it's important as couples to really deal with this head on. And otherwise, it's going to get worse and worse. And who likes to have an argument with their spouse about finances? In addition, they say 30% of couples will fight because of deceitful financial decisions. And I think that it's important that my wife and I were constantly working on it. And I think that sometimes the temptation is, as a family, is that if you just get a good plan and that's good, and then you don't discuss it, you got to be tracking and measuring that. And it's important. That's where we're going to have an expert talk about that today. But in addition, we're going to some additional stats about how it's important about personal finances in America. 24% of our population has less than $1,000 in savings. 12% say that they have between $1,000 and $5,000. 5% say they have between $5,000 and $10,000. What that means is, especially if you're in a family, that means if you add it all up, it's nearly, let me add it up, so you got 71% of Americans have less than $5,000 in savings. And we're the wealthiest nation in the world, and that is, if there's any financial turmoil, you lose a job, that's just really narrow. But so today we're going to be talking about with Kerry Johnson, and he leads a class called Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, and he's going to be talking about why he's passionate about that and how this class can help people get their finances in order. So without further ado, Kerry Johnson.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, glad to be here.
Yeah, before we get into the Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, how about you tell us about yourself, where you grew up, college you went to, and what you do professionally.
Yep. Grew up going to Nevada. That's where my family's from. My mom's from there. And after I graduated, I wandered down the road to Iowa State. I got a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I graduated in 2008, and then I'm currently working as a manufacturing engineer at Quality Manufacturing. Been there about 8 years now.
That's great. So tell us about your family.
Yep.
So you've migrated from Ames to Des Moines, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. Been married for 8 years to my wife, Rebekah, and we have 2 kids, Eloise, who is 3, just about turned 4, and then Warren is 1, and we've got another one on the way.
That's great. So you and Rebekah are going to be leading this class through Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
Dave Ramsey, he's kind of like, tell us more about Dave Ramsey and about the class you'll be leading and why you're passionate about it.
Yep. So Dave Ramsey, he's a financial advisor. He puts out material called Financial Peace University. He's been doing this for over 25 years. He has his own podcast that he runs every single day, just giving people real advice on their money and how to handle it and how to get out of debt and stay out of debt. We're passionate about it because of what it's done in our lives, our own lives, and what we want to help other people get through, the things that we've gone through and just prepare for life, because life happens, and to be good stewards of our money and, just to open up opportunities within our own lives. Yeah. There's desires that we want to do, but you have to have a plan to accomplish things. And Dave puts out a pretty good comprehensive plan on how to, work with your money and tell your money where to go. And, what you can kind of aim, but if you don't have a plan to get where you're going, you may not get there very well. So. Yeah.
What's interesting to me is I remember in high school, sometimes we can have selective memory, but I remember in high school, we did take an accounting class and budgeting class. Yep. But when you don't have any money, you just don't pay any attention to it.
Right. And the other thing, Dave Ramsey mentions it too throughout the class several times is, colleges and universities and high schools put out these classes on accounting, but there's nothing about personal finance. And so business finances, you kind of are mentally separated from your own finances when it's not your money that you're thinking about spending or thinking about handling your own money. There's a different accountability when you have a job and you have to work through accounting. So those accounting classes don't necessarily target personal finance and personal habits. And it's a lot more real, like you said, when you have the money in your hands and you have to do something with it.
Yeah. And one thing too, just about with budgeting and finances, it's from my personal experience, it's just easier not to pay attention, but it's not. Right. So if you're not paying any attention, you might be like, "Are we doing okay, honey?" And then you're not. And if you have some trial, then obviously that's where there can be friction in relationships. So it's good. So Dave is very into being proactive.
Absolutely. He's got a lot of catchphrases, which we love them all. But one of his is you have to tell your money where it's going to go, or it's going to tell you where it went at the end of the month. You don't want to get to the end of the month and have no money left. So you do have to have that plan, and it's been so helpful for us to have that plan, and also just being on the same page and having the same goals on where we want to go and how we want to get there.
Yeah, and I think it's and it just gets into the seriousness of it as well, because right now we're dealing with the coronavirus and we don't know what's going to be going on with that, with our markets. That's totally out of our control. And there's going to be a time where you will need some wisdom and some savings, because you don't know what's going to happen with the curtailment of employment, if things are going to be shut down, not making money. So it's important. It's real stuff. And now being a husband, working,
and kids, and
2 kids, and then one on the way, and it gets real, and it's a mature thing to start taking it head on. So.
And also, it's not just when you get to that point when you have a family and a job, but the earlier you start, the more success you can have, and the more you can shape your own future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of one of those things. I think in America, there's a tendency to kind of, it's like cool to like not pay attention and be responsible. Like that's portrayed even in comedies and stuff. But it's like, when you got real financial decisions to make, it's not that cool, to feel that pressure.
Right.
So
it's not romanticized.
Yeah. It's not real life. But the thing I like about what Dave Ramsey, I read his book and I've listened to his podcast, is that he gives like just practical wisdom, and it's really good guidance, and it can really, when you're unified. I mean, when I was dating my wife and we got engaged, we hardly ever talked about finances. We talked about like how our life's going to be together, but finance is really important, and get unified there. So let's, if it's okay with you, let's kind of give a quick overview, spend like a minute or two per class that you'll be teaching, and kind of give some high points and go from there. So Dave talks about baby steps. So baby step 1, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Is kind of the first baby step to kind of figure out a way to save. So let's talk about that. What are your I guess your class will be talking about baby step 1's budgeting, and then also trying to get to $1,000. So give a quick overview on that.
So I guess starting with budgeting, it goes back to, you have to tell your money where it's going to go, or it's just going to go where it's going to go, and you're going to find out at the end of the month if you're tracking it, or you're going to find out when it's too late. But the $1,000 emergency fund is incredibly important because things happen. I mean, my water heater went out last week. I had to replace that. And a couple weeks before that, we sent our dog to the vet. And, within the last 8 to 12 months, we've had to do lead abatement on our house. Without having some of those savings in our bank account for things that we did not want to touch, put our money toward, but we had to deal with. And to be able to handle those things, especially like you said, with the way things are starting to go with the markets, and not knowing how those are going to go, and it's important to have that little bit of a fallback to say, okay, I can handle something. If I need to fix my car, something happens, I have the cash to do it, and it's not going to break me. So you have to have a starting point, and that's where Dave starts with his, is having that emergency fund of just $1,000 for starters.
And then I did a bad job setting this up. So let's talk about budgeting real quick.
Yes.
So how do you budget? What's kind of some high level things with that?
Budgeting, you really are just putting a structure on where your money's going to go. You're saying, you're taking what you receive, what you earn, you're setting that dollar amount, and then you're taking all your expenses and laying out all of your expenses for week, 2 weeks, a month, however, you want to lay it out. But you tell your money where it's going to go and say, how much is going to housing, utilities, food, the necessities. You kind of lay it out and take all that, and your goal is to get to a $0 budget when you're done and say all my income equals all my outgoing expenses for that month, and you're doing that every month. And something we struggled with at the beginning was we would do that budget, but then we wouldn't necessarily follow through with it. And so we'd get to the end of the month and it's things weren't quite lined up, and it took us a while to get into the rhythm of sticking to that budget and saying, this is what we allocated for a certain expense, that's what we're going to spend on it. When it's done, it's done.
And that's where my wife and I and even it's really it's hard work to line it up well. But a lot of times it's like working out or being like an athlete. It's like you got to keep working at it and you got to keep paying attention. And I think that like what you're saying, it's like it's all about execution. Set up the plan and be realistic, do the work. And I think the temptation is not to allocate time for it, but I think where we've been in good rhythm is when we're actually paying attention.
Right. So, and when you get that going, it takes a while. It takes a little bit more effort at the beginning, the first several months when you're doing it. But once you do get those habits ingrained, like you said with exercising, once you get up to, you get into it, you kind of hit a pace that you can just run with a constant stride with, give or take a few miscellaneous expenses that happen, but once you get it used to it, then it flows pretty smoothly, and it takes a lot less work to maintain it. All
right, let's talk about the debt snowball, or let's talk about that.
So baby step 2 is paying off all your debts except the mortgage, which is the later baby step, and you're paying them off in the order of smallest to largest. A lot of the questions Dave fields is around interest rates, and shouldn't I be paying off the ones with the highest interest? The whole goal with paying off the debt smallest to largest is your goal is to get rid of the debt as fast as you can. So the interest shouldn't matter in the end. It'll be minor dollars and cents if you're paying it off quickly and hitting it really hard, which is the whole goal of that second baby step. So you get a lot of motivation when you start ticking off those those loans, smallest to largest. When you pay one off, it feels good when you're really working hard at it, and then you pay the next one off, and that feels amazing. And you're taking that money that you're paying to the first one and roll that in the second one, and you just keep adding, until you get going, and it really does work with the motivation. It does. Really, you have to keep yourself motivated, because it's easy to get burnt out if you're working really hard at it. So that's where that going in smallest to largest amount really does help your mentality and your morale when you're working hard at it. From personal experience, absolutely. You just line it up. That's what we've done, and you just get momentum. And it's kind of like one of those things. It's what does Dave Ramsey say? Like live like someone else. Live like no one else, so that later you can live like no one else.
Yeah, and I think that it's just so common. Like my wife and I, we attacked our student debt, and I'd equate that when we first started, like running a marathon, and equate to someone who's never ran before. And when you line up your student debt, all of our different loans, and line them up from smallest to greatest, it's like equivalent to running a marathon for us personally, because we feel like it's a big hill to climb. But it would be like running like half a mile first, and then a mile. And you just get more confidence, you see results, and I think I'm a big believer in lining it up that way.
Right.
So, because otherwise you can just be, for me personally, you can be so philosophical that you just don't do anything.
Right.
Or you
just get tired of it, because if you are really working hard at it, and you start out with a very, very large loan, and suddenly 6 months in you're going, I don't want to do this anymore. But if you've knocked out one loan 3 to 4 months into it, and then you're about to finish another loan another couple months later, and go, okay, I got the hang of this, I can stick with it because I'm making progress, I can see that it's tangible progress, and that's really where that snowball.
And what's cool with the Dave Ramsey show is he consistently will have people tell their quick story.
Every day he's got a debt-free screen where people come in and tell their story. Every single day he's got, somebody coming in telling what they've done to really work hard through it. So.
Yeah, and it's developed that community, which is good to see results, and that gives people encouragement. So,
Right.
All right, let's baby step number 3 is pretty straightforward, but talk about that.
So baby step 3 is getting back to that emergency fund and building it up to a substantial 3 to 6 months of your expenses for whatever you spend on a month. You're saving that. So if you do have something very large happen in your life, whether you got a major medical expense or you end up losing your job and you can't find a job for a few months, you have a few months worth to saved up where you can actually spend time and concentrate on looking for new jobs or whatever, handling those sort of bigger life unexpected events. And that's just, you save that up and then you don't touch that. And it's not an investment. It's not a, something to be played with. It's just, it's there in case of a true emergency.
And then baby step 4, what?
So baby step 4, saving 15% of your income for retirement. Again, that's, I'm seeing commercials about that, how long they're living and do they have enough retirement saved up. There's just tons of commercials about, trying to get people to understand they don't have enough saved for retirement. And it is pretty sad to think of how many people are close to retirement but then realize they can't do it because they didn't save enough. It's a pretty big thing, and delayed gratification is what that's all about, is saying I'm going to put a little bit aside until it's time to retire, and let's retire the way I want to retire and not be stuck working longer than I want to.
It's just prudence there. I mean, it says in the Bible that the wise see danger, or the prudent see danger and take refuge. And not that getting old is dangerous, but it's reality, and there will be expenses there. So baby step 5.
Baby step 5 is saving up for kids' college if you got that, and that one's, again, is pretty straightforward. If you can and if you want to, save it up to help with your kids and getting them through college.
And then baby step 6, what's the strategy there?
Baby step 6 is paying off your mortgage early, and that's 4, 5, and 6 are all somewhat done simultaneously, so that's kind of a mixed bag there. With that balance, which is something my wife and I really have put a lot of thought and heart into trying to figure out exactly how much to put in each one of those bags. But paying off that mortgage early really frees up a ton. And talking about those debt-free screams that Dave does on his show where people have paid off their debt, there are a lot of those people who've paid off their mortgage early. Dave loves to call them weird people, and I'm looking at weird people is what he says. But it's, I want to be weird. I want to pay off my my mortgage early because that frees up that much more money to be able to bless other people with, and my own family, my community. My church, there's a lot that can be done, and just because everybody has a mortgage pretty much and hangs on to that and just keeps dragging that out doesn't mean you have to. And you paid off early, it's staggering the number that you can save in just interest. And that's where your interest really matters, is that long term. If you're paying your mortgage off 10, 15 years early, you can save $60 to $100
that could be the college fund right there,
depending on what kind of exactly. And you can cash flow college. You pay your house off before your kids are out of the house, then you can cash flow that college. And you don't need to necessarily do so much saving up front. So
absolutely. And Latin mortgage means debt till death or death grip. So more for moratorium and engage for grip. So it's one of those things that you want to use as a tool. I think the biggest thing that Dave Ramsey kind of summarized, like you want your money, you want to like have control of your money and then decide where it goes. And I think paying off the mortgage can be a big help. So, all right. So baby step number 7.
And baby step number 7 is be outrageously generous. It's that's kind of self-explanatory. You get all that money. You don't just want to hold on to it for yourself. You can't take it with you, and there is such a joy in being able to bless other people and being freed up to do that. My wife and I got to experience that after we paid off our debt and got through, baby steps 2 and 3, and we were starting to save up for our mortgage. Some friends had their family vehicle broke down. We were able to help them get that repaired, and that was just a really exciting thing for us to be able to say, like, they were really concerned that they wouldn't be able to take care of that, and to be able to help somebody with that just really kind of gets at you to say, hey, I can really do that.
I remember when my wife and I first got married, we were pretty poor with everything. I remember someone gave us, in our Bible study, gave us $80. And that was actually, I was like pretty proud about it. I was like, I don't need it, but actually we did. And I'll always remember that. You know, it's something as small as that, and just being able to be a blessing.
Right, take people out for meals, or, you know, tons
just
of
building a
things you can
community, which is really
Absolutely.
nice.
Yep.
Well, so what's really good about Financial Peace, those classes, you guys will talking each week about these different baby steps in each class.
Yep.
And you'll kind of give a strategy and some practical advice, and also accountability component too. And the thing that's nice is that you'll be around people. If you take the class, they're in the same boat, same motivations, exciting, more than likely similar stage of life, and you can find some other weird people.
Absolutely. And I know there's one couple that signed up that is pretty darn close to finishing off baby step number 2. They've been working hard at it for a couple of years, and so just having them part of the group is going to be pretty exciting for you know, give other people hope, like, hey, we are doing it and we're so close, you can do it too, you know. But it is true, you know, doing that with the community, and you know, working through your own numbers with other people, and you know, it's just very helpful to get into that class and to work through that, and just to learn together. And you know, my wife and I are not done, nobody's ever done, but you know, we're working on it, working through it, and we've been through certain steps, and love to help other people through it too. So
awesome. Well, that'll be a wrap for this week, but I would say if you have any questions, feel free. Kerry said that he'd be happy to sit down for coffee if you ever want to meet and talk about his experience. And then also we'll be giving away his Dave Ramsey's book. So if you like or share this post, we will be giving away a Dave Ramsey book. It's a great pragmatic approach that's really helped a lot of marriages, and it's some really good wisdom. So Kerry, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Yeah, glad to.